Hi, I'm Claire Williamson, an ex-litigator and the co-founder of Leading Minds. With 97% of lawyers complaining that stress is impacting their health, I think that it's time that we speak about how challenging the pressures of the legal industry can be. So this podcast is a space where lawyers can discuss how they've overcome challenges they face in their role and gone on to thrive within their career. Whether you're a trainee, a partner, or anyone in between, I really hope that this podcast will leave you feeling inspired, empowered, and with the confidence that you can leave your mark on the legal industry. And today I'm very excited to be joined by Alice Stephenson, who's the founder of Stephenson's Law. And, you know, in an industry known for walking the line, Alice is going to be sharing how your personality could actually be the secret to your success within the legal industry. So thank you so much for joining me today, Alice.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Amazing. I just thought maybe you'd like to start by telling us about, your kind of entry into the legal industry and how your journey kind of went.
Yeah, sure. So I took a little bit of a long way around into the legal industry. So my original first career was actually in human resources. That's sort of my first degree, and then my first job, a couple of jobs actually were in HR. But I sort of fairly quickly realized that wasn't really where I wanted to be long term. And law just kind of sort of stuck out to me as a good option, really. So I decided that that's what I was going to do. So I needed to go back to university, do the graduate diploma in law, do my LPC, and obviously get a training contract. But at the time, because I was working full time in HR, I couldn't just stop work and go back to university. I had a young child that I was supporting. So the only way that it was going to really be possible was if I got sponsorship and a training contract. So kind of made that my mission, really, to get a training contract and to get sponsorship. It was really hard, I think, to do that. It's very competitive at the best of times, and I didn't do particularly well in my A levels because I was pregnant when I took my A levels. So I had personal difficulties that affected my performance, and law firms don't really care about those sorts of things, to be perfectly honest. But I did manage to get a training contract with what's now One Dickinson.
Okay.
And that meant that I could go back to university, did the graduate diploma in law, did the LPC, and then did my 2 years of training there. But it was right in the middle of the recession. So at one point they were talking about deferring my training contract, which for me was massively concerning, because I needed to get into work. I needed to be earning some money. And also I kind of felt like it had already taken me a really long time to get to where I was. And I was already sort of quite a few years behind where a lot of my sort of peers were. So I didn't really want to delay things any longer. So fortunately, I managed to persuade them not to defer my training contract. So that was really good. And then when I qualified, things were pretty bad, actually. And the NQ market was just a disaster. So I wasn't able to stay where I was in the firm that I trained, even though I really, really loved it there. I had to go out and look elsewhere for an NQ job, which I was really gutted about. But I think actually looking back, it was probably a really good thing. I think sometimes when you're comfortable, then you don't sort of go and look for opportunities that are going to push you out of your comfort zone. But that really forced me to do that, really.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got into law.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say, because I must have trained and qualified about the same time as you then, because it was during the 2008 recession, and it was very, there was a lot of uncertainty in terms of, when I was very lucky that my traineeship wasn't actually affected, but there definitely, there was a lot of uncertainty, and there was a lot of additional pressures and stress that you had to really make sure, you were going to get kept on, because the NQ market, in kind of parallel to probably how a lot of people are feeling at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. It was a difficult time, and I think in sort of, if I was to give trainees advice who are going through similar experience now, I think I would say really don't give up, don't lose hope. There are still jobs out there. Stephenson Law, my firm, is recruiting at the moment. So there are law firms out there that are recruiting. it just might mean that you have to look a little bit harder for those opportunities, but they are still there.
Yeah, definitely. And also that I think, some people might find themselves taking a slightly different, alternative route, or a different route that they hadn't anticipated. And whether that's, whilst applying for traineeships or having to paralegal, or, that you're, taking a role in an industry that's maybe not the legal industry. But you do find that by doing these things, you actually gain those additional skills. And would you say that's something that you found helped you when you entered as a trainee, obviously a little bit older than, what your traditional straight from uni, early 20s trainee was, and having had life experience from having a family? Do you think that gave you more confidence in your own abilities and kind of making your mark as a trainee?
Yeah, I think it definitely did. I think sort of in a professional context, I was very used to having a job, and sort of what that entails. And I think that sounds quite basic, but actually, for a lot of trainees, their training contract is really their first exposure to being in a corporate environment. So that for me wasn't a shock to the system for me at all. And I think also being that little bit older and having that other experience under my belt just gave me a little bit more confidence in myself. And I think that really helped me. I think as a trainee, it meant that I felt a lot more confident in asking for things, asking for help, asking for opportunities. If there was a particular type of work that I wanted to do, then I wasn't afraid to ask to be involved in that type of work. So really kind of putting myself out there a little bit more. I think it really helped.
Yeah, and that's definitely something I would say, from working with thousands of trainees over the last few years and having been one myself, that I see people really struggling with is just having the confidence in themselves to be able to kind of ask for more information, or if there's a specific area they're interested in. And I really think that can hold people back and make them feel very, very negative about themselves, if you would agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it surprised me when I started my training contract how many people were just afraid of partners, like irrespective of who they were. The fact that they had the title partner just seemed to instill fear into a lot of junior lawyers, and just create that barrier between them. And I think that definitely holds people back, because one of the things that really helps in your career and helps you progress is building those relationships with people at all levels of the organization, and you have to be able to do that. So as a junior, you have to be able to build relationships with clients. You have to be able to build relationships with senior people in your organization, because otherwise, when it comes to them making decisions that impact your career, you're not going to be the person at the front of their mind when they're making those decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's such good advice, isn't it? That I do think people kind of feel like they've just got to, be really quiet and get on with their job and, not kind of say anything. And especially, that's why I'm so kind of passionate about having people that are more senior on the podcast, to show that they are people just like us. They're personable, they face their own challenges, and just being able to kind of open up those lines of communication, I think, is really, really empowering as a junior member of the team.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really, really important, and something that I've always, I suppose I haven't really had much of a problem with. I think my dad was a lawyer. He was a partner in a law firm. And I think that as a result of that, I never really had that fear of partners, because for me, they're just normal people like everybody else. You have people that are good at their jobs. You have people that are bad at their jobs, people that you want to work with and people that you don't want to work with. And you kind of have to figure that out as you go along, but you can't just sit and let your career happen to you. You have to actually take control of it yourself, and find the opportunities and make those opportunities work for you, because nobody else is going to do that for you.
Which you have obviously very much done by launching your own firm. So I'd love to hear about your your kind of story as to what led you to launch your own firm.
Yeah, so I think I reached a bit crisis point in my legal career, really, when I was about 3 years qualified, and I'd worked in a few different law firms and hadn't sort of found a firm that I was comfortable in, somewhere that I felt like I was able to be myself. I knew that I was good at my job, but I felt like there was always something holding me back. And I was just getting increasingly frustrated by the way that lawyers were being treated, the toxic environments that exist within these law firms. And particularly as a woman, there's definitely still not gender equality in the legal industry. And that was something that I also became aware of as I sort of developed through my career. So I got really frustrated with all of that and just decided that I didn't want to be a lawyer anymore, because I didn't know what else to do, really. But when I decided that I didn't want to be a lawyer, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't really have a plan B. So I did some consultancy work for a while I sort of tried to decide what my next step was going to be, and ended up sort of doing the consultancy work for about 3 years, because actually I quite enjoyed it. Sort of gave me back a lot more of the freedom, a lot more of the independence that I really was missing when I was working in private practice. And then I just kind of thought, well, I didn't want to be a consultant for the rest of my life. I think, it's fine. It was fine for the period that I was doing. I learned a lot, gave me some flexibility. It pays quite well. But actually it wasn't really a career for me. I couldn't really see how I was going to develop myself in the role as much as I needed to. So what I decided to do was basically build a team around what I was doing. So working as a consultant to in-house legal teams, but doing that with the backing of a team around me. So that's it. It kind of felt like the next logical step, really, for me, which I know that lots of people just be like, that's really weird, like, really?
That's what I was thinking when you said that. Felt like the next logical step, that I would just have my own firm. I was like, can't say I've ever had that thought of being the next logical step, but I absolutely love that. And I think it really shows your kind of mindset and your kind of attitude towards the industry, and also the kind of, the culture you're working within, just being very, very innovative and saying, actually, why would that hold me back? Just because everyone else doesn't do it, why shouldn't I? And I love that.
Yeah. I just think, I suppose part of my mindset was that I couldn't find a job that I enjoyed doing. I couldn't find an environment that I was comfortable working in. So my solution to that was to create my own, which is quite an extreme thing to do. I'm not going to lie, but I think what I'm trying to do is really tackle some of the issues that exist within the industry and create a business that actually does things better. Like, there's lots of things that law firms do that they just don't have to be that way. And so what I'm trying to do is run Stephenson Law a lot more like a business and a lot less like a law firm.
And can you give me some examples of those, in terms of the things that you think, law firms do that maybe aren't kind of relevant anymore?
Well, I mean, I could get on my soapbox about this and talk for hours. I mean, at a fairly kind of basic level, I think the way that law firms brand themselves and market themselves is really bland. I don't think that they really they push their people to the center of their brands enough. It's all quite the same, I think, when you look at sort of law firm marketing. So one of the things that we're really doing with Stephenson Law is creating a brand that is actually more fun, it's more human, and it really connects with people on a sort of deeper level. And we're finding that that's really working, and actually people really like it. And actually it makes us a more fun place to work, because we're making silly videos. We're what we believe to be the first UK law firm on TikTok. So we're just trying to actually have a little bit of fun with it as well, which I think is really, really important. I think lots of law firms have a marketing team that that do marketing, but actually marketing, everybody needs to be involved in marketing. It's really important.
Yeah.
So we're certainly doing the marketing side of things a bit different. And then sort of from a cultural perspective, for me, it's really important that everybody feels like themselves when they're at work. I don't want people to feel like they have to put on a mask when they sit at their desk. You know, and that comes in lots of different forms, whether it's what they're wearing, or whether it's emotionally putting on a mask. There's lots of different ways that people do that. But for me, you know, I think it's really important that people feel like they can be themselves at work, because that encourages more creativity, more individuality, and again, I think that can only be a good thing for a business.
Yeah, and also people, you know, when they feel more comfortable within themselves, that kind of you know, stress is all perceived really, isn't it? So it's our perception of event which labels it stressful or not necessarily the event itself. Like public speaking, some people might find that incredibly stressful. Other people might see that as a really exciting opportunity. And I think the more that we're kind of comfortable in ourselves and settled, when these unexpected things come our way or challenges come our way, we're actually better able to deal with them. And as you said as well, there's that element of creativity as well. So I don't know if you'd kind of agree with that, that it means people are more relaxed within themselves and therefore able to do their best work.
Yeah, I think that's completely right. I think, you know, I didn't enjoy trying to mold myself into a person that was going to fit into a corporate culture. I just wasn't that type of person, and trying to turn myself into that type of person just made me really unhappy, and certainly didn't bring the best out in me.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're not going to be the right law firm for everybody. We're absolutely not. But for the right people that are the right fit for us, we are the right law firm for them. And I think it's getting all the different parts of the ingredients together, and then that's sort of what makes it work, really.
Yeah. And I definitely think that there is more of a, you know, as people are becoming, especially kind of more junior members, becoming more visible on social media, whether that's through Instagram, whether that's through LinkedIn, and developing their own style and personality, which I think can only be a good thing. But I think a lot of people are very put off by the concept of doing this because they feel like they've got to toe the party line, be what the brand kind of wants them to be. And what would be your thoughts on that, or your insight into that? You know, how can people start to develop their personality without not going too far, but while still also, you know, being within the realms of what their law firm expects of them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one really, because I don't know what law firms' expectations are, but I mean, there was this recent report, wasn't there, about how female doctors posting photographs of themselves in swimwear on social media was considered to be unprofessional, and that as part of, you know, a recruitment screening exercise, any candidates who were found to have put photos of themselves like this on their Instagram page were considered to be unprofessional and therefore, you know, not suitable. And that is just mind-boggling to me, absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, you know, if you're on holiday and you're posting photos of yourself with your family or your friends in a bikini, then, you know, that's just life, isn't it? You're just sharing pictures of your life with your followers, and that's what social media is for. So I think everybody has to work out where their own boundaries are, and, you know, you're going to have your own personal boundaries of what you feel comfortable sharing and what you don't feel comfortable sharing, and then obviously you've got external expectations. But I think what's really important for me is actually you find an employer that allows you to be you. So actually, if you want to be posting things on social media that your employer doesn't want you to post, and that's something that's really important to you, then find another employer that's going to be comfortable with that. Because what they're doing is, you know, is monitoring the way that you're behaving. And I mean, you know, we all know that there are things on social media that shouldn't be put on social media, and that goes without saying. You know, I'm talking about the 95% of content on social media that is appropriate for social media by most people's opinion.
Yeah.
But you know, if a law firm doesn't want you posting photos of you in a bikini on your own personal Instagram page, you know,
yeah, that's your call as to whether you feel comfortable with that or not. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think, like, I always kind of say that to people as well, that although it's very easy, especially in the current climate, to think, you know, you have to just take any job that's available to you, and you know, your people are filing off applications left, right and center. It's like, it is a two-way process. You need to find the law firm that's right for you as well, or else you're not going to be happy, you're not going to feel content or fulfilled, and you're not going to thrive in your career. So it's kind of, you know, it's easy to say, and it's maybe more difficult to stick with, but it definitely is a two-way street when it comes to, you know, you working with a law firm versus just you know, having to impress them so that you'll get a job.
yeah, I think I completely agree with that. We've all had moments in our lives where we've just had to get a job to pay the bills.
Yeah.
You know, that happens, but I guess you need to decide, is this a job or is this a career? Because if it's a career, then you need to make sure that you're in the place that's right for you.
Yeah.
If all you care about is making enough money to pay your bills, and you know that's your number one priority, then fine, it doesn't matter where you work. But actually, for most people, that's not enough, and it's not going to make you happy. And particularly in our industry, people, you know, they enter this with the intention of it being a career. You don't go through years of training and spend thousands and thousands of pounds on it for any other reason, really. So I completely agree. I think junior lawyers should have more confidence to demand more of their employers, and if, you know, all else fails, vote with your feet and find an employer that is going to be right for you.
Yeah, and I think that's very important as well, because I think traditionally, you know, you trained somewhere, you qualified there, and then you went on the partnership route, and that was it, and that was your job. But I think there is more flexibility within the legal industry now, and I'm by no means saying everybody jump and leave your law firm, you know, not at all. But I think it is finding a firm that is the right fit for you, and that makes you feel able to be yourself and therefore thrive within, you know, your personal and professional life, because there's always going to be an overlap between our personal and professional life. Neither of them are in isolation, and we need to make sure that we can kind of, you know, make that as smooth and effortless as possible.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a real institutionalization that takes place with junior lawyers, and I remember when I sort of stepped out of that environment, just thinking, oh my God, there is so much that I didn't even realize existed outside of here. There are so many opportunities. There are so many different ways that you can work as a lawyer, and things that you can do both in an employed capacity and in a self-employed capacity. But when you're working in that environment, you just have these blinkers on, and you don't see what else is out there. And I think that can really hold people back.
Yeah, definitely. Very much so. On your LinkedIn, I'm just going to quote you here because I love this. When I read it, I was like, I need to speak to this lady on the podcast. You say that your goal is to really inspire young women in all sectors to challenge the perceived barriers to success and see that anything is possible. I'd love you to tell me a little bit more about this and why you're so passionate about this.
I mean, I think it stems back to my own personal experiences, to having a baby when I was 18 and being told that, you know, I wasn't really going to be able to achieve anything because I'd made that decision, and actually thinking at the time, I'm not going to let that happen. There's no reason why I can't do the same as everybody else just because I've got a baby. So I've always been of the mindset that if you want something enough, and if you set your heart and your mind on something enough, then you can make it happen. And there's always people who are going to put barriers in your way. You know, when I was in the early stages of setting up Stephenson Law, I lost count of the number of people that said to me, you won't be able to do it, the insurance is going to be too expensive, I tried to do it and it didn't work, you won't have any clients, you'll never be able to take a holiday. I mean, honestly, the list was endless. So if I was listening to all of those people, I would have run away. I would run, just run away and hid under a table somewhere, and I'd probably still be there. So there's always people putting barriers up in your way, and there's always, external barriers that exist as well. Being a woman in the legal industry, as much as we don't like to think it's the case, does create barriers to success, because there is still so much gender inequality within the industry, and there's not equality of opportunity for women. We're just not there yet. The research shows that that's the case. So, that's an example of a barrier that exists, but that shouldn't stop us from achieving what we want to achieve. We just need to be aware of it and work out how we're going to smash it down, basically.
Amazing. I love it. And I think that's why your story is so inspirational as well, that you did have, what some people might say is like barriers or, blocks, and you've just kind of gone, well, no, I'm not going to accept that as one. I'm just going to do it anyway. And it's like, yes. And, the fact as well that Stephenson's Law, I mean, how many employees do you have now?
So we've got 15 employees at the moment, and then we've got another 8 people starting in the next 3 months. So we're going through a massive growth period at the moment.
And that's so positive as well for many people to hear that, law firms are actually growing in this market. I think sometimes, law firms are one of the few businesses that do actually benefit through a recession as well. So anyone who is kind of feeling quite uncertain or feeling quite overwhelmed by the current state of affairs, keeping that in mind as well, that, some businesses do thrive in these industries. So we've just got to keep that at the forefront of our mind. Has it been challenging going from, setting up your own firm and then kind of growing this team and managing this team as well? Has that been kind of led to some challenges, or have you just kind of embraced it and thrived within it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. It's been hard. There's no question about it. It's always hard starting a business. It's hard growing a business. And there's been an absolute shed load of challenges and obstacles that have come up. And, for me, it's always been a case of you just have to find a way around them. We just have to deal with them. That it's a problem that we have to find a solution to. It's not the end of the road. So whenever anything comes up, that's how I tackle it, and that's how we kind of move ourselves past things and onto the next level. But I mean, it is essentially just one long series of problems running a business.
I hear you. It's like the things you never realized you were capable of doing. Like, oh, I've just built a website today. Like, didn't know I could do that.
Yeah, well, that's it. You learn so much. I've learned more in the last 3 years than I think I'd learned in the previous 15 years or whatever. It's a massive learning curve, and you learn what you're good at, you learn what you're crap at.
Yeah.
And hopefully you get a bit better at some things along the way as well, but it's a massive learning curve.
Yeah, and it's not saying that everyone has to set up their own business, but whether that's like taking on, maybe it's something you're really passionate about and you want to be involved in a charity or be a trustee, or, I don't know, so many different opportunities, running a blog, making your own website, building a brand, whatever it is you want to do. I think doing that whilst you're kind of doing your your day job is a really good way of actually building your confidence in yourself and your abilities as well. Because I must say that some of the challenges I've faced, from running my own business, it really just makes me, when little things come my way, I just think, oh, that is not a problem. Whereas before, that might have been something that really floored me. It's just like, oh, that again, no worries.
Yeah. Well, it does, it does sort of put things into perspective a little bit, doesn't it? And I think as we continue to grow and develop, our ability to handle problems like that, like you said, would have completely floored us in the past, just become just a bit of an annoyance that you can do. Yeah.
Amazing. That probably leads me on to a very good closing question. I always ask people a couple of questions at the end of the podcast, so I'd love to know your opinion on this one. And the first one is, what does resilience mean to you?
Resilience.
Resilience, sorry.
Okay.
Something went in my throat there as I said that. Good one, very smooth there.
I would say that resilience is is having the strength to not give up, really. So having that grit and that determination and that belief in yourself to just keep going. And I really love the quote that actually you only fail when you stop trying. And as long as you're still trying and you're still sort of putting one foot in front of the other, then, you know, you're still succeeding. You might not be doing, you know, it might not all be going how you want it to go at that particular time, but having the resilience to keep putting that one foot in front of the other is really important.
And I think that's so important. And for many people, and again, we're kind of looking, I keep talking about the junior members of the team, but everyone, you know, I think, but especially you face this as a junior member of the team, that you might make, you know, errors, or you don't know things and you've got to ask additional questions, and it can feel like, oh my God, I'm no good at this, or am I ever going to be good at this? But again, you know, that quote I think is so relevant, that you do just have to see it as part of your journey, part of your progress, to really kind of, you know, nailing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what would you say, you know, is your number one tip for sustainable success within the legal industry?
I think for me, it's been finding my voice. Sort of, you develop as a lawyer, but you also develop as a person as your career progresses, and you learn about yourself and about the way that you want to be treated and the things that you want to do. And I think for me, what's been really important is discovering those aspects of myself, and creating an environment that enables me to work authentically, basically. Because I think when you're working in a career that you're not able to express your individuality, you're not able to be authentic, then I don't think that's sustainable.
Yeah, that's a really, really great one, and ties in with the theme of today as well. I like what you've done there. And the final thing I'd love to know is who inspires you within the legal industry? Is there anyone that you think would be a great guest on the podcast?
Oh, there are some great people. If I had to choose one, I would choose Dana Dennis-Smith, actually.
Okay.
Who's doing some really, really great work around gender inequality in the industry.
Amazing.
She's doing lots of research, she's doing lots of articles about it. So yeah, she's definitely one to follow.
Amazing. I'll definitely get in touch and hope that she agrees to be a guest. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. I think your story is so inspiring and really does, you know, kind of show people that the barriers are there to be broken down and kind of moved past, and to do anything that you set your heart, you know, set your sights on as possible. So thank you so much for joining me today.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Claire.
Amazing. And for anyone you know, watching today, I just wanted to say, you know, we'd love for you to subscribe on our website at leadingmindsglobal.com, and then you'll be updated every week with weekly episodes of the podcast, and just follow us on LinkedIn as well if you want more tips for sustainable success in the legal industry. So thank you so much, Alice, for joining me, and thank you everyone for listening.